When someone hurts us, do you wait around for them to do it again, or do you move on? Today on rLounge, you can give them another chance, or you can forgive, let go, and give yourself another chance. Up first, the past came back for a lunch date. Ex-fiancé wants to catch up after he left me at the altar. How do I proceed? Well, exactly what the title states. Also, I'm writing this on mobile, sorry for any formatting issues. My, 28 female, ex-fiancé, Derek, 32 male, disappeared the morning of our wedding 2 years ago, evading all attempts to reach him from myself and his family. It was devastating, absolutely soul-crushing. The event turned into a party to distract from the pain of the unknown. Afterwards, I returned to our apartment and slept on the bathroom floor in my wedding dress. It was quite the ugly sight, to be honest. His mother ended up coming to the apartment when she informed me tearfully that Derek had run off with an ex of his. They had apparently reconnected a week prior to the wedding, and he just couldn't go through with it, opting instead to rekindle his relationship with his ex. His family was horrified. I didn't hear from him until 3 months after he left. He called me, apologized, and then revealed that his ex had been hiding his child from him that he just found out about. He wanted to be with them. That's pretty much all that was said. I didn't say much. Actually, I think I only said hello. The whole situation left me numb. I just didn't care anymore. Thankfully, though, my friends were and continue to be there for me. Through all of this muck, they encouraged me to seek therapy and work on healing, which, I'll be honest, was terribly difficult. But after a year, I felt myself again. Which brings me to today. After this whole debacle and subsequent self-improvement rebuilding, I moved to the UK, originally from Australia, for a change in scenery. Last night I got a message request on Instagram. It was Derek. Hey, I've heard you moved to Wales. That's so cool. I'm traveling to Cardiff towards the end of July. I'm deeply sorry about everything and I want to discuss what happened leading up to the wedding. I hope I'm not overwhelming you. Let me know if you'd like to talk over lunch. Firstly, no idea who told him about my move. Secondly, I don't know if I crave closure from him, but I also don't want to decide to decline to only later on regret my decision. So I turn to you strangers of the internet. What should I think about before reaching a decision? Would it be wise to decline, or should I humor him and listen to his reasons? Okay, minor update. Wow, this garnered far more attention than I anticipated. So bear with me as I try to navigate all of your advice. Although the general consensus is quite clear, I have learned that an old mutual friend of ours revealed where I moved, and evidently he's been stressing that he needs to tell me something. For the time being, I have decided to simply ignore his message and work through any emerging feelings with my therapist. Thanks. Update. Hi. So as I mentioned previously, I decided to not respond to his message. A day after I received another message from him, which I won't write out in its entirety. To sum it up, he apologized for how disingenuous his previous message was and explained why he had reached out to me. Essentially, he wanted to discuss that final week before our wedding, and why I left without discussing it. I'll be honest, I'm going to refrain from going into detail about our whole story here, but I will say my ex-fiancé, thank you for the correction by the way, has been diagnosed with avoidance PTSD from past experiences. I feel for him, but I told him that I still couldn't move past being left in a state of limbo for 3 months. Irregardless, ultimately I agreed to meet him, and I don't regret it. He's not with his ex. I found out she's actually since passed away, which is part of the reason that he reached out to me. And yes, the child is his. The lunch was short, and in the end he handed me an envelope, which contained all of the money we spent preparing for the wedding. In all honesty, it was cathartic for me. I've often feared that I'm still subconsciously harboring feelings for him, but the lunch proved I didn't. I've closed that chapter of my life, with him, with the woman I was, and now. Now I'm free. Thank you all. Let's see what the community thinks. The first comment says, I wouldn't bother. You've closed this chapter. Don't open old wounds for yourself. He's selfish AF. Another person chimes in, there is no excuse in the world good enough to explain away what he did. Here are some of the options he had. Call you, the woman he was going to marry, and talk to you about the situation. Talk to his parents. Make an appointment with the therapist. Basically talk to anyone he trusted about finding out he had a child and was thinking of being with his ex. Postpone the wedding while things get figured out. He chose not to talk to anyone though, because he knew what he was doing was unbelievably sick and wrong. Not that his feelings were wrong, but the fact that he was going to abandon you and embarrass you in front of everyone you both loved and knew. Let me make this clear. Instead of calling anyone and canceling the wedding, not even a cowardly text message, he let you get ready, get your makeup done, put on your dang wedding dress, and let you think the day was going to be one of the happiest of your life. He put your parents in a position to see their daughter so high and happy and full of love, then utterly destroyed. He put his family in the position of having all eyes on them, their cowardly son nowhere to be seen. What he is doing now is one of two things. 1, he realizes he made a mistake and chose the wrong woman all these years ago. 2, he misses you and thinks he can get you back after his unforgivable actions. 2, he is only contacting you to make himself feel better about being an utter A-hat. Please do not give him the satisfaction. One other person chimes in. The ball is entirely in your court. Do you feel you need anything from him? Do you need an explanation or closure? You don't really owe him anything, so it's entirely about what you want from this. The OP replies, it sounds pathetic, but I guess I want to know the why a bit more in depth. Yet again, learning it won't change anything from the past, thus brings me to my conflicted state. Wow, OP, you very much handled that with grace. I'm sorry you had to experience that and go through that long without having any answers. It's unfair of him to have put you in that scenario and then to return expecting you to just pick up where you left off and discuss everything over lunch. There's some truth to the comment about him only contacting you to make himself feel better. I mean, he even admitted that he was having avoidance PTSD from the past. That's very much a him problem and not a you problem. He didn't seem to be mindful of how being contacted by an ex-fiancé might be triggering for you. Update, 11 days later. Hello everyone. I did update my original post, but I've decided to repost it here. So as I mentioned previously, I decided to not respond to his message. A day after, however, I received another message from him, which I won't write out in its entirety. To sum it up for you all though, he apologized for how disingenuous his initial message was and explained why he reached out to me. Essentially, he wanted to discuss that week, the final week before our wedding, and the events that led up to him dipping out. Now, I will refrain from entirely delving into my ex's and I's past, but my ex-fiancé was diagnosed with PTSD with avoidant attributions from past experiences. His diagnosis did provide quite a bit of clarity looking back, our relationship and his past behavior, so I truly feel for him in his journey of self-healing. However, despite his struggles, I still told him that I couldn't forgive him for his callous act of leaving me in a perpetual state of limbo for 3 months, unsure of why he had abandoned me. He said he understood. Now, and some of you will be quite mad with me, but I ultimately agreed to meet him for lunch, and I did not regret it. He's not with his ex. Actually, she passed away 6 months after he left me at the altar, which is part of the reason why she reached out to him in the first place. Since then, he has been working on himself through therapy and navigating single fatherhood. Yes, the child is his. The lunch wasn't too long, but it was all around cathartic on both sides. At the end of the lunch, he handed me an envelope which contained all the money we spent preparing for the wedding. Honestly, I was dumbfounded. It wasn't a gesture I was expecting on his behalf, and I think he was taken aback when I returned the ring he gave me. It's funny, I held onto the ring just in case I needed to sell it if my finances continued to be unstable, but I never had to. Ironic that, in the end, I did receive money while seemingly trading that ring. He looks better, and not to toot my horn, but I feel I do as well. Now that chapter has concluded and I no longer feel rage or remorse. I feel free. I feared that I might have still harbored feelings for him, but I have once found that I loved him for the man he was in that moment when we were together, and though we're now apart, I'm okay with looking back and acknowledging the love I had for him. I've closed that chapter now with him, with the woman I was with him. Thank you all so much. Any advice on what I should spend the money on? Ha! We have one quick comment from the community. Honestly, I'm actually happy with regards to this outcome. I wish him, and of course yourself, best wishes on each of your lives. It's refreshing to know that you have uncovered more about yourself in meeting him. That page in that chapter is done, and you've made it out alive. You're right, you aren't that person you once were. Maybe use that money to do a bit more uncovering? Travel and continue to grow. Wishing you all the best, OP. What would you do with the money? Up next, a bad grandma about to be served the cold cut combo. Mother-in-law won't attend baby's first birthday because she wasn't invited to birth. My mother-in-law won't be attending our baby's first birthday party. She says that things are just too overwhelming at home right now. This is hitting her daughter, my wife, like a ton of bricks. It's hurtful, maddening, angering, and is keeping my wife up at night. The issue is that mother-in-law demanded to be at the birth. My wife set boundaries and told her mom that she just wanted it to be she and I. Mother-in-law said she was okay with the boundaries, then sent father-in-law to me to escalate the situation. She's earned the right to be there. I disagreed. It was my wife's decision. They seemed to respect that. She didn't visit the baby until he was 4 months old, and she hasn't been back since. She's retired, and money isn't an issue. So mother-in-law would have flown across the country at the drop of a hat to be at the birth, but she won't come to the baby's first birthday with multiple months' notice? She's seen him once and held him for about 5 minutes, just enough to get a photo to show her friends. It wouldn't usually bother me, My wife's parents are a real handful. They're hoarders and that lifestyle travels with them, and I'm generally glad when some nonsense they've caused prevents them from visiting. But this hurts my wife, and our baby deserves to have grandparents. When my wife's brother's kids were young, mother-in-law would fly from the West Coast to the East Coast once a month for a weekend to be with them. She did this for years. Maybe I'm out of line here, but this feels retaliatory, and the only thing I can do is support my wife. Maybe we make them feel unwelcome? They used to visit often before the birth, so the only difference I can see is the situation around not being welcome at the birth. Otherwise, on weekly family calls, we reiterate the open invitation to visit the baby anytime, and they talk about how much they love the baby and how important family is. I hate that they've upset my wife. I hate more that, despite her, they're taking it out on her baby. Thoughts? Let's get some of those community thoughts. The first one says, the trash is taking itself out. Your baby doesn't need that kind of person in their life, and neither do you. Cut off contact and let your wife deal with her if she so chooses. But keep you and your baby away. The next one says, from your wife to her mother. No problem, Mom. We'll try again next birthday. Maybe see you then. Then leave her unread. Don't chase her. It only teaches her that her entitled behavior works. And the last one before I move on. But this hurts my wife, and our baby deserves to have grandparents. Your baby deserves healthy, respectful, loving relationships with people who love and respect their parents, not petty, self-centered, ego-driven, giant old A-babies who hurt baby's mother and father and fail at behaving like loving parents towards them. Stop seeking them out. Drop it and consider yourselves freed from the bullcrap. They have shown where their priorities lie. Their petty revenge is more important to them than their grandchild, their daughter, and their son-in-law. Does your baby really deserve people like them? Honestly, it's her loss. If she can't get over herself, she's only ruining a good thing for herself. It's absolutely a retaliation. But from what? Yeah, it upsets your wife, but why would you want someone like her around your baby anyways? The fact is, she didn't earn the right to be at the birth. Nobody earns that right. It's not some ticket that can just be handed out. It's up to the mother who's giving the birth, who she wants there, and who she doesn't. Update. Wife and I see no reason to engage with mother-in-law anymore. How do we cut ties? My mother-in-law has been childish since my wife gave birth to our son about a year ago, and we think we've had enough. My wife told her mom that she didn't want her at our son's birth. Mother-in-law was a nurse midwife for 20 years and said she could be an asset. My wife's sister-in-law said that having mother-in-law at her daughter's birth was a nightmare. She was controlling, yelling, demanding, and, maybe TMI, held sister-in-law's legs open as a way of helping during childbirth. Sister-in-law jokes about it now, but says it was like a sitcom how awful it was to have mother-in-law there. Armed with that information, we politely, emphatically, friendly, carefully said that we did not want her there. In response, mother-in-law has been throwing a quiet, read passive-aggressive, fit about this for almost a year. Thus, she's visited the baby once and held him for about 10 minutes. Her son, brother-in-law, talked with her about it. She admitted that she's still hurt about not being invited to the birth and that if we didn't want her then, she doesn't feel the need to try at all. So, the baby's birthday is coming up. We invited her. She made a bunch of excuses. Brother-in-law got it out of her that she was making stuff up to avoid the party. Since she said that she wouldn't be attending, I gave the guest room to my mom. What were we supposed to do? Hold it for someone who told us she wasn't coming? Brother-in-law convinced her that she should make an effort to see the baby. Now she wants to come to the party. Great, but there's no room for her. She can stay in a hotel, but our house is booked up with people who said yes months ago. Mother-in-law was given the same opportunity, not 2 weeks in advance. So, mother-in-law is mad that we're choosing my mom, the person who said yes months ago, over her. Father-in-law hasn't ever offered to visit the baby. My wife and I are feeling like this is the last straw, and we're debating cutting ties entirely. I'd love to. She and father-in-law are hoarders. They smell up our house when they visit. They're rude, always bickering and yelling at each other, constantly infantilizing my wife, and now ignoring our baby because mother-in-law didn't get her way. I think it's unfair to ghost them. My wife doesn't want to explain why we're cutting ties, so we're caught in the middle. What's a mature, adult way of cutting ties? Are we jerks here? Let's get a couple comments from the community. First up, it's not unfair to ghost them. They sound selfish. Another comment states, Mother-in-law, you had first dibs to the room. When you made it known you would not be coming, we gave it to the next person in line. While you cry thinking we chose the other mom, how do you think she felt when we could not commit the room until we knew what was going on with you? We are over this pettiness. Grow up and act like an adult. Until then, we are out. I probably would most likely just stand by your wife with her approach and decisions. It is her mom. You're not the jerks here. I think it's best to just rip the Band-Aid off. Don't engage with them and don't go out of your way to include them in your lives. And the fact that she was a midwife doesn't mean anything. What do you think? Is a gentle approach the way to go? What would you do? Thank you for joining along today on rLounge. Before you go, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. If you have something you want to say regarding today's content, we want to hear it. See you next time.